There are several verbs in English language that behave differently from other verbs. They are the so-called modal verbs. The modal verbs are can, could, may, might, should, would, ought to, must, will, shall. We'll cover all of these verbs in the following lessons. But now let's talk about what makes these verbs different from other verbs. 1. They are never used separately. All these modal verbs add a meaning to the verb. For example, I must study or I'm going to be kicked out. Must is a modal verb. It means have to. We don't use must without another verb. We don't use it separately. The same rule applies to all other modal verbs. 2. We do not use the ending s when we have the subject he, she, or it. For example, he could win this race. He coulds would be wrong. No s with modal verbs. 3. Modal verbs are always followed by the infinitive without to. For example, I can drive a car well. He should eat less. Dean must work harder. 4. In questions, modal verbs work as auxiliary verbs, meaning we put them before the subject, and we don't use other auxiliaries like do, does, did, etc. For example, what can I do about it? Where should I pay the fee? What time must he arrive? 5. When we make a negative sentence with a modal verb, we don't use don't, doesn't, or didn't, because modal verbs act like auxiliaries. For example, sorry, I couldn't find your car key. He shouldn't play with fire. He mustn't leave the lecture.